Good evening, everyone. So thank you first for welcome to our tonight's event, a literary reprieve aid for Turkey and Syria. My name is Farendai. I'm the Director of Program and Collections here at HR Archive. I see many new faces here. So for the first time, welcome to HR Archive. And I also wanted just to give you a very brief intro into our organization. HR Archive in Brooklyn is a small mini hub of what we call a mothership, our mothership, HR Archive, which is based in Hong Kong. And we also have another small mini hub based in New Delhi, India. So our reading room where you are sitting right now is open to public 4 days a week. And we usually have a lot of researchers coming just to browse our physical collections here. And also this space is online access point to our vast digital collections on recent art from and of Asia. And we run around 2 to 3 public programs every month, ranging from workshops, screening, panel conversations, and also individual artist panels presentation. So for tonight's event, it's organized by Mina Hamid, who is Turkish Iranian writer and literary agent. And Mina Seçkin, who is the author of The Four Humors, and their full bios are available on our website. So feel free to read it. And also later, both Mina will also introduce the schedule for tonight, as well as for the bios of the readers of this event. So before I turn the mic over to me, the Minas, I'd like to share some brief housekeeping notes. So for tonight's event will be roughly around 1.5 hours, and this event is being recorded. So if you're unavailable to stay for the entire conversation, we're also posting the edit video to our website later. Or I also want to mention we have a lot of audiences joining us from Zoom. So welcome to. And another thing is, I believe you both set up a table over there with some of the books from the readers tonight. So after we finish the event, feel free to stay, enjoy the wine, the drinks, and also looking through the books, as well as feel free to browsing all the books here. We actually have 2 floors. So the first floor are mostly art theory book, art history, and exhibition catalog, and the individual monograph. And we also have a lot of artist book downstairs. So feel free to walk around, and also if you have any questions about our organization, feel free to ask me afterwards too. So now I like to turn the mic to Mina and Mina to do the introduction, and thank you all again for joining us tonight.
Hello, hi. We're the Minas, the aforementioned Minas. Really big thank you to my co-organizer for this event. Enormous thank you to Asia Art Archive, Firan, Christina, Nikki, the whole organization. And a very big shout out to my fiance back there who made Zoom and a lot of this possible for us. So thank you, Tony.
And yeah, we just want to keep it short. Thank you to all our readers tonight. And I wish we were organizing here tonight and reading together under better circumstances, but just a moment of silence for all the lives lost in the earthquakes.
Yeah, let's get started. So we'll be having, I think, readings, and then a movie screening by Amy Omar, and then a few more readings. And then, like Fran said, feel free to mingle, drink wine, chat, but we'll get started.
Yeah.
So it is my honor to introduce the first writer tonight, and that is Alana Saab. Alana Saab is an author and award-winning screenwriter based in New York City. Her debut novel, Please Stop Trying to Leave Me, is represented by Janklow and Nesbitt and set to release summer 2024, Vintage Books, Penguin Random House. You can also find her words in Pank Magazine, Epiphany Magazine, and more. Saab has an MFA in fiction from the New School, a master's in psychology from Columbia University, and her BA from NYU Galton. Using her research at Columbia, Alana works with survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking to utilize storytelling as a healing and self-actualizing medium. She also mentors writers who are incarcerated at maximum security prisons throughout the United States. Overall, Alana's work explores themes of mental health, queerness, collective and individual trauma, and the transcendent through a metamodern approach. Thank you, Alana.
Everybody. Oh, I feel like I have to live up to my bio. It's not gonna happen. So I'm gonna be reading from Please Stop Trying to Leave Me today, an excerpt from a part of the book that's called The Study of Oblivion. My new therapist repeats, so where would you like to start? I need to finish my manuscript. How to finish a manuscript, about 23 million results, 0.71 seconds. My new therapist says, can you say more? So I say, well, I had a nervous breakdown and now I'm stuck in oblivion, which wouldn't be so much of a problem if I could still write, but I haven't been able to because oblivion just keeps deepening. So I came to you because I need to finish my manuscript and my girlfriend found your studies online. She said, you've done studies on people who think the world is unreal. And she said, that sounds like me because when oblivion takes over, I say nothing is real, literally nothing except me. And I created this whole world and I'm stuck in it. My new therapist doesn't say anything, so I continue. So yeah, I'm stuck in oblivion, kind of like a character is stuck in a book, but the character also wrote the book, but now they can't escape from the book. My new therapist doesn't move. And that's all fine, but an agent is waiting to look at my manuscripts and I can't finish the chapter about my girlfriend because I don't know how the story ends. Are you writing a memoir? No, I write fiction. I pause and realize how quickly I'm talking, but I can't stop because talking is the only thing that helps me pacify the pain in my chest. I continue. But if you're asking about genre, which I think you are, I don't know what genre my book is because I haven't finished it yet. I wasn't asking about genre, but it seems like you're concerned about genre. This should be a statement, but she says it like a question, which makes me want to itch my neck. My new therapist continues, speaking very slowly. If it is fiction, then why are you writing a chapter on your girlfriend? Oblivion clouds the room in a haze, and I wonder why I made this lady and her tan couch and her awful textile pillows. But mostly I wonder why I created her to be wearing ballet flats, and why if I created her, I'm so scared of her, and why if I created this whole world, it seems so terrifying. Then I remember I'm trapped within it and I don't know a way out, and even if I did know a way out, I'd be alone on the other side anyways. I think all of this, but I say, so think of yourself like my writing professor. I wink at her, and I know how weird that is, but still I do it. My new therapist doesn't say anything. I push my bottom lip out and twirl a gold ring around my middle finger. Silence, silence, silence. So I say, and my new therapist says, my not having written for 4 months, which accompanied by my not having slept, my panic attacks, my crippling anxiety, my 30-pound weight loss, now putting me at what, no more than 100 pounds, makes her think, in her expert opinion, that I am severely depressed, amongst other things, if I want her opinion. To her, it seems obvious. I just need to finish my manuscript. To her, it's odd that my old therapist never told me I was severely depressed. I tell her he didn't believe in labels, he was more spiritual. What does that mean? I shrug and say, I'm spiritual too. What does that mean? And when she asks me this, a taxi honks outside. That's what I mean. She says, what is what you mean? I say, it means that I see signs everywhere. Can you give me an example? I point to the window again. She says, huh? So I say, most buildings in New York City skip the 13th floor. And that means my new therapist really doesn't get me. Norma, can you explain the signs you're seeing that are bothering you most? Fine. God keeps telling me to break up with my girlfriend. Can you give me an example of God telling you to break up with your girlfriend? Well, like my girlfriend's Muslim and I'm spiritual. She has lots of friends. I have 1 or 2. She likes to cook and I hate cooking. I know, right? Then my new therapist says, do you have any examples of signs that don't have to do with your individual preferences? Well, I should start at the beginning. We met the first day that New York City went into COVID lockdown. We spent the pandemic together, and COVID was a sign that we were meant to be together and meant to fall in love, and that's why COVID happened. A global pandemic happened for you to meet your girlfriend. Well, it happened for an individualized, specific spiritual reason for everyone. Mine just happened to be her. Other people got divorced. Other people quit their jobs. Dolphins came back everywhere. So yeah, there was a spiritual reason for COVID, just like there's a spiritual reason for everything. That's obvious. Is it? Can you give me an example of other spiritual reasons for events? I want to say like that frizz in your hair. There's a spiritual reason for that, but I don't know you well enough to know what it is. Instead, I say like Kim Kardashian sex tape so she could become famous and make big butts in style. Any others? I try to think of another example when my thoughts go blank. Oblivion tends to empty my thoughts and put my mind into high speed at the same time. Yes, simultaneously. It makes no sense, but that's oblivion for you. Anyways, yeah, I say there's a spiritual reason for everything. My new therapist just stares at me blankly. So I say I should continue about the signs because I can tell I'm not explaining it well. That was back then, but this is now. Like this morning, I was scrolling on Instagram and this quote came up about letting things go that no longer serve you. And that was God, talking about me and my girlfriend. My new therapist furrows her eyebrows and tilts her head to the side like a good, curious dog and asks, was that God or was that just an Instagram post? I can feel the judgment in her voice, and so I aim to make my case by saying, please read this part very quickly for full effect. Well, God's plan for me was that I needed to be with my girlfriend back then, but now that the world is opening again and COVID is just mutating into these little baby viruses, I'm getting all these signs that it's time to leave her. Like yesterday, I was listening to my relaxing playlist on Spotify, and I was trying to meditate in bed, and my girlfriend was sleeping next to me, covered in white sheets, and she looked so beautiful, even though she was kind of snoring. And then one of my favorite songs came on by Sana Bose, and it's called I Love You, and I could breathe easier for a moment because I thought it was a sign that we were meant for each other, despite her love of cooking and Allah and extrovertedness. But then I had never even heard the song before. The chorus said, if you love someone, set them free. And again, if you love someone, set them free, on repeat over and over again. And it was so obvious then that God was trying to give me a sign. My new therapist's eyebrows are stuck furrowed for good. I'm sure of it. My new therapist is very quiet and wrinkled. And then she says, so you believe that God is coming down from wherever he is? Oh, no. My God isn't a he and it's not capitalized. Okay. So you believe God is coming down from wherever it is and going into your Spotify and Instagram to send you specifically a message that you should leave your girlfriend. Well, yeah. Suddenly I feel insane. So I continue, but God does that for everyone, not just me. And as I say this, my right leg shakes. And now I'm a dog in her brightly lit office, but I'm the dog who has to pee. And I think that's much worse than the inquisitive dog. Her eyebrows are still furrowed when she says this through Instagram.
That was awesome. Thank you, Alana. I have the great honor right now of introducing Nazlı Koca, who is an incredible writer. Her first novel came out very recently. Please read it. It is really, 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 really good. Nazlı Koca was born and raised on the Mediterranean coast of Turkey and moved to the US 5 years ago by way of Berlin. Her first novel, The Applicant, incredible novel, was published by Grove Press in February 2023. Nazlı.
Thank you, Mina, and everyone who showed up tonight. Yeah, it's such a nice opportunity to support my country, my messed up country, and to be in this room with like two people who blurbed me. Thank you, Elif, like forever. I will read, it begins like this. To whom it may concern. I obey, I work, I appreciate. I scrub, I vacuum, I mop. I want you so bad I'll do whatever you ask. I can kill, I can steal, I can take the blame for anything you need. I can dance, I can sing, I can be your exotic queen. I can carry, I can build, I can drive you from building to building. I can be the star of your football team. I can fight all your wars for a tiny, shiny coin. 2 coins and I will proudly work in your rotten hospitals, universities, tech companies. I can live in your apartments and take care of your babies for free. It would be an honor to live under the same roof as you, your creepy husband, and your newborn baby. I can be your cheap prostitute right here, right now. I can take it all in. If the earth collapses in on you one day, take this oath. I will be your human shield. Will you let me stay? Let me stay. Let me stay. And then after that weird thing, the rest of the novel is just like a series of diary entries. So I'll just read a couple pages of the first one. August 15th. Today I started working as a cleaner at a hostel. I'm not officially registered to work yet because of my visa status. Well, not really. I'm not registered because I still haven't sent them a copy of my visa because I'm afraid they'll think my status is complicated. But this has nothing to do with cleaning toilets, or it has everything to do with it. The hostel's name is Looking Glass. Thus, the kitsch portraits of Alice, the Mad Hatter, and the Queen hang on its sky blue walls. It says, "We're all mad here," in ugly letters down one whole side of the room, and there's a huge kaleidoscope mirror on the other. When I walked in, a couple of pale and tall people, tattooed and pierced, were behind the bar, which is also the reception desk, talking about their wild weekends. I asked for Ali, my trainer for the day. I found him in the storage room, which is also the changing room. Ali is a Turkish graduate student who works 3 extra jobs so he can afford to be an unpaid lecturer at a university here. He's a barista, a delivery guy, and a cleaner. We kind of look alike, except we don't. Well, we're both Turkish and we both have dark hair, like all of us. We're all like, first we looked up how many checkouts there were today using the company app on the Androids assigned to us. Then we went to the putzkammer to fill up our cleaning baskets. Things we must put in our cleaning baskets. Yellow cleaning cloths for the shelves in each room, yellow sponges, or were they pink? Blue cloths and blue sponges for sure for the toilets. Tea towels also for the toilets, mops, an empty IKEA bag for the dirty mops, 2 spray bottles, 1 blue, 1 pink. Pink first, then blue, like ladies first. Welcome to the bottom of the immigrant hierarchy, Ali said, handing me a pair of yellow latex gloves. He explained how at the end of every shift, we must refill spray bottles and put them on the shelves where they belong. We must put each dirty sponge, cloth, and tea towel into its own dirty basket. We must throw used bed sheets and bath towels into the laundry room through the little window in the basement. If we find anything that looks valuable, we must take it to the lost and found behind the reception. But if we find small things like bottles with fun, shampoos, or food left in the common kitchens after the guests have checked out, we can take them home. In Ali's words, there are treasures to keep. Treasures of the day. 1 shampoo, 1 shower gel, 5 tampons, half of the fund money, 3.15 euros, we made recycling the bottles we found in the rooms. Thank you.
Before I introduce the next reader, Mina and I forgot to mention that there's QR codes for all the nonprofits that you can donate to tonight. And if you have any questions about any of them, feel free to ask one of us. Also, there's 2 seats right in the front here. I'm friendly if anyone wants to sit here.
You more too.
Yeah, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
You can.
Stop being Turkish about it. Get away. Roma, get your butt over here. Yeah. So, it is my honor to introduce the next reader. I'm very close to her, you might say. Leyla Hamidi is a Turkish-Iranian writer and educator living in New York City. She has written about the aspects of her twin cultures for various sources, including Pop Matters and Vice, and is currently working on her MFA in popular fiction and publishing. As an educator at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine, her classes on world religions, sacred geometry, and immigration always integrate the overlaps between the Middle East and the rest of the world. Thank you, Abla.
We share parents or hi everyone. I haven't read in front of people in a while, so bear with me. The last step to turning the porn video rental shop to a horror movie rental shop was the easiest. Holding the VHS cover of Scream in front of her to emulate the font of the letter S, Philomena Richards traces out 2 of them on the stiff cardboard, paints them red, and with double-sided tape, slaps them onto the sign next to the counter. That's how Scream a Little Scream starts its first day of business. The sign out front still says Cream a Little Cream, her best friend Her best friend and coworker, Nikki, comments from her spot on the floor, decomposing arms propping up her head. But inside, we're screaming. Philomena smiles. She has red lipstick smeared across her teeth and her fake tits are lopsided. They match her crooked beehive wig. The door opens. Instead of the usual tinkling of a bell, it screams. On my last day at home, I did an honorary last walkthrough of the rooms. There was the serial killer enclave, as we called it, where H.H. Holmes welcomed you at the door. The entryway was made to look like a hotel facade, and if you peered through the fake windows, you could see a sickly women mingling with Jack the Ripper's harlots. It wasn't necessarily factual, but back when the house first opened, Grandma said she didn't have a whole lot of materials to work with, so she made do with the whores and poisoned women doing double duty. That was off the first floor towards the back. Perhaps it could have been a dining room or second sitting room in a regular house, but in Delia's Museum of Wonders, it was the historic murder den. There were quite a few more killers displayed, but all pre-1900s, because Grandma said they had more storybook mystique. She didn't want to give any more attention to the 20th century killers than they already had, because that was crass. However, she took particular joy in making me stand in for Countess Bathory in the bathtub blood scenes. A good scare is a loud scare, she always said. Before getting to these scenes is a silent zoo. Taxidermy creatures stare out from every surface as soon as one enters the house/museum. Taking a cue from P.T. Barnum, my grandmother didn't just display the regular deer heads and stuffed vermin of any roadside slop. No, hers were the creatures of myth. Mermaids, different breeds of unicorns, jackalopes, and any creatures that were ever mentioned in the city's guide to their local cryptids make an appearance in the zoo. All stitched together by my grandmother's diligent and exhaustively researched hands. The second floor is a series of rooms that all open onto a mezzanine that offers a view straight down to the first floor. All manner of medicinal plants and herbs line the tables, shelves, and floors of this balcony, so it feels like wandering through a particularly deadly garden, and glancing down encourages the vertigo. There are 6 rooms all around the open middle balcony, and my grandmother had doors knocked down between them, so a path can naturally progress all the way from one end to the other without coming out onto the main walkway. The aim is never to spoil the effect you see. Each room highlights the stages of a person's life, starting with birth, then childhood, adolescence, adulthood, old age, all the way to the last room where the Grim Reaper awaits. He always seemed so foreboding when I was younger, but I hadn't really looked at him in a while. Now he met me at the end of the route with tattered robes and a skull with missing teeth. One last time, I turned off the lights of the display rooms, as was my duty after days spent working in the Museum of Wonder, and made my way down to the kitchen. Our glasses had been filled with bright red pomegranate juice, both our favorite. Neither of us were particularly sweet, and we preferred that tartness in our drinks. The gin bottle was out to mark the occasion, too. We make our own worlds, Philomena. It's time to find one for yourself. We both drank, and I would have left it at that, our company worth more than words could say, but she deserved a toast in return. I'm going to miss you and the house the most, Grandma. Thank you for everything. But whatever comes next, I'm happy to say I'll never have to scrub fake blood from my clothes again. 6 months into her job at Scream a Little Scream, and Philomena stands in the employee bathroom trying to scrub the fake blood from Nikki's costume off hers. Nikki really likes the elaborate outfits. Zombies in the worst states of decomposition, oozing from the arms and legs, and innards hanging out from artfully tattered clothes feature heavily. There was also the day she just wore fur glued into a sort of bikini and made Phil do her makeup to be the wolf woman of Sunset Boulevard. Nikki was a feminist that way. After the success of the opening day extravaganza, where a total of 7 people actually showed up and rented movies, costumes are now the mandatory business casual wear of the employees of Scream a Little Scream. Here for all your scream-worthy viewing needs. Nikki likes to say at least they're in the movie business. Isn't that what they came here for, to tell stories? And Phil is much happier putting her skills to use in Hollywood than in a sad, old-fashioned haunted house in the middle of nowhere, right? There's nothing that will make her go back home, right? The end. Thank you.
Oh, remember to speak close to the mic so our Zoom friends can hear. I'm very excited to introduce my co-conspirator. Mina Seçkin is the author of The Four Humors, out through Catapult 2021. She serves as managing editor of Apogee Journal and completed her MFA at Columbia University, where she received the Philippe de Alba Fellowship as well as her bachelor degree. Her work has been published in Refinery 29, McSweeney's Quarterly Concern, The Rumpus, and elsewhere.
Hello again. I'm back. I'm gonna read a poem that is about it's about The Sims, and it's about my dad, and it's about if you are Turkish, you would know gazeteler.com. Okay, anyone, especially in the diaspora. So it's about that. It was sometime after 9/11 that I started noticing my dad's computer screen. Bubba, I mean. It's disgusting what I'm about to tell you, because actually I got to play a lot of video games when 9/11 happened, by which I mean I got to have some fun. I'm not proud of it. I was in the 3rd grade and I played The Sims for hours. It's how I learned about sex, actually, this early simulation. School was shut down, so was the bridge to Manhattan, both bridges, and every day I got to make my Sims have sex in the room with the pink heart bed. If you want the man and the woman to have sex, you just have to pause the game and delete the door. The Sims was kind of radical. Even in the 2000s, they let 2 women have sex, but still not a baby. Anyway, I liked making babies, breeding. The baby came with a bassinet, low cost. My sister taught me that, how to make a child on The Sims. She's older. It's funny. She's a fertility doctor now. I'm not even making that up. I should ask her if it was because of The Sims that week when 9/11 happened. Because all week after the towers fell, burned up pieces of paper flew in from across the river and into our garden in Brooklyn, and my mom gave us gloves and a green paper gift bag and sent us into the garden to collect the notes of people who loved people. And me, my sister, my brother, we were all confused all week. We didn't understand why we went from the garden to the computer, why we were allowed to play Sims all day. Usually we had rules about math and science, rules to make sure we were happy ultimately in the long run as adults in this country. That's what they were banking on. But that's just an idea, right? So we took turns at the computer and deleted the door to the bedroom and watched the 2 Sims trapped, panicking first, pounding the door to be freed before they found each other. And I guess it was out of boredom or relief that they began to touch each other, the pink duvet roiling up and down over their bodies. Wow, we thought, wow. All of it makes me want to throw up now. The way we forced them, all of it. All of it was a well-timed distraction. Early news of sex. I think every parent could do with some of that. It seems like parents need it, the distractions. My parents, every night then, my dad paced the kitchen, paced the living room. He paced sad and ashamed, and he kept muting George Bush on the TV. And then he kept raising the volume. And then he kept saying, things are different now. Now they will tell you one of us, but you will never be one of them. It's different for everyone when you start to see things for what they are. I'm not sure if it started then for me, and it feels like an easy date for me, 9/11, but I think I began to have some idea of the sick heart within the country we're supposed to be calling home, America. Why did he come here if he knew? Bubba, I mean, America, I mean. It took me a long time to learn a lot of stuff I'm learning still, and the thing I'm trying to tell you is that it was around then that I started to notice his computer screen. He always looked at the same thing. A home page, I figured, lilac in the back, boiled yellow egg in the foreground. A lot of text, Turkish text. I can't read Turkish very fast or very quickly, and the colors were childish, really. And I didn't want to poke around. I didn't want to dive into his computer screen, his private universe. I was in the 3rd grade, and I was thinking about The Sims. What if he had another family like my best friend's dad, she'd told me? What if he was a terrorist like my best friend had told me? Anyway, I carried my heart around in my hand instead. I made it into my mouse. When it was my turn to play Sims, I made more babies. We had 2 computers then, 2001. He had his computer, and then there was the kitchen computer, where me and my siblings, we took turns breeding.
Other things happened then too, in the years that followed. We learned and unlearned that we were Muslim. We learned and unlearned that the United States was not fighting terrorism. The United States created terrorism. I had sex, real sex, but not because there was no door in the room. I was not forced by some greater power, a 9-year-old, eager, disturbed, with a mouse in her grubby paw, and her siblings just as fucked and eager on either shoulder. And I did not have a baby with a bassinet. We learned and unlearned and learned again the things that Turks did too, the things Turks do. We learned that my dad was once political, but he won't talk about it. You can't go to jail if you never did anything, if you don't talk about it. I believe it was for the right things, the things I care about, but he won't talk about it. It's good that he stopped hiking us over to Lexington Avenue every year for the Turkish American parade. Fact that is embarrassing. Nationalism is embarrassing. And you know what? Sometimes I'm embarrassed to be Turkish. I think other Turks feel it too. Sometimes I want to be something else, an ant. They work together, they build together. Anyway, it would hurt less, and I don't even live there. And I don't know why it took me so long to learn what he was looking at every day on his personal computer. It wasn't a big deal. It was just a website that collected Turkish newspapers together all in one place, all from different perspectives. There are a lot of perspectives, but that's all it was, news from his country. I had dared to peep closer one day when I was home for the summer, college break, hunting around in the heat around his desk for cigarettes. I won't give examples of the news I found, paint a picture of the news I found. You don't want to hear it, and I don't want to make you cry. It's funny because once I told an old boyfriend of mine that my dad didn't care about American news, even elections, he didn't follow them. Sometimes I confess I didn't even know if he voted, but he still looked at his website for Turkish news every day. His boyfriend was upset. He was like, but he's a citizen. Isn't he a citizen? A US citizen? Hello? Like, okay, baby, does a citizen have to care about what this ex-boyfriend, a very mid-average white boy who grew up in Yorkville, cared about, which was the Democratic Party that dropped bombs on the Middle East and New York City housing politics, especially gentrification, which this white boy considered himself exempt from? He loved the city, but he never understood there were other people living here. I'm so angry most of the time. You wouldn't know it talking to me. I know how to smile and laugh, and I mean it too. But just last week, I was hunting again, not for cigs. I quit, and I saw the screen, Bubba's screen, a new screen now, and my heart, it opened again, as if a 9-year-old girl, a sicko with a mouse, had decided again to build me a door, a digital door, a door I could climb right out of. That's the end of the poem. Wow. Cool. Thank you everyone again for being here. Now I have the great honor again to introduce Amy's short film called Breaking Fast with Coca-Cola. And it's a short film that started getting premiered just this past year. It's really, really good. It's about 2 Turkish American girls in the Midwest who decide to fast for Ramadan, and they're not telling their parents that they're doing it. So we technically have a break while this is happening, but please sit down, enjoy the film. If you need to use the bathroom, please do so very quietly. If you need another drink. So Amy is a Turkish American writer, director, producer, and entertainment lawyer living in New York. Amy is a recipient of Wavelength Productions grant for 5 POC, first-time female filmmakers, and recently wrote and directed her first short film, which we are going to watch today, Breaking Fast with Coca-Cola, which premiered at South by Southwest and also screened at various Oscar qualifying festivals. And she's working on a lot of different films too, Letter 8, and her second short film, I Figured on Tuesday. Yeah. Here we go. Now I have the great honor of introducing Zeina Arafat, also an incredible novelist. Zeina Arafat is a Palestinian-American writer and the author of the novel You Exist Too Much, which won a 2021 Lambda Literary Award and was named Roxane Gay's favorite book of 2020. She teaches creative writing at Barnard and the School of the New York Times. Sorry, I stumbled. I didn't know they had a school. That's amazing. And is currently at work on her second book. Zeina.
Hello. I actually just 5 minutes ago decided to read something totally different and new. So I hope that's okay. All right. So bear with me. Reading off my phone. Okay. This is an essay or a short story genre. Yeah. There were 2 rules on the yacht: no shoes on deck and no champagne before noon. I'd been invited aboard by my aunt. I'd been invited aboard by my auntie Lena, who had recently taken up with the yacht's owner, Ahmed, an Egyptian stockbroker who spent most of his free time in Beirut's Solidaire district, where auntie Lena had chosen to live post-divorce, despite having no intrinsic connection to the city as a Palestinian, presumably for its proximity to wealthy men from neighboring, more conservative countries who visited Lebanon over weekends to spend their money in debaucherous ways unavailable to them in their home countries. In the wake of his country's revolution, Ahmed had found himself with very much time and money and very little to do, even with his Beirut jaunts. Business had all but stopped in Egypt. The stock exchange was shut down on day 3 of the revolution, leaving every businessman in Cairo scrambling to get out of the market and the country. So with buying and trading at a standstill, Ahmed left in mid-February and came to his yacht, which wintered in the port city of Marmara on the Turkish coast. He brought no suitcase. A full wardrobe awaited him in one of the boat's 2 master bedrooms. He'd been at sea ever since, drifting between Greek and Turkish territory, raising and lowering the boat's flag, depending on which island or cove the captain chose to drop its anchor. As we floated through the sparkling Mediterranean, Ahmed occasionally checked global stock prices on his iPad. Sometimes he made calls from a satellite telephone while smoking a freshly cut Cuban. Mostly, he just drank and refreshed our glasses. I'd been hesitant about going on the trip, even though Auntie Lena had offered to pay for my flight from New York to Bodrum. I could think of 2 possible reasons why she wanted me there. The first was to establish a line of credit. Auntie Lena bought and traded favors. Once, after a 10-day visit to her summer home in Alexandria that included an overnight stay at a boutique hotel on the Red Sea's coast, she asked me to retrieve her son from Reagan International Airport and deliver him to football camp in New Jersey. When he and I arrived to the camp, the counselors informed me that his mother had neglected to actually enroll him, requiring that I stay until the mess was sorted. On another occasion, she had me carry 3 brand new Sony Vios in a suitcase across the Atlantic. I'll pay the overweight luggage fees, she promised when I informed her that each laptop added over 10 pounds. I called Auntie Lena from the customs office in Amman, where I'd been detained after declaring the computers, and she instructed me to hand my phone to the border official. Somehow, she talked him into letting me through. In her latest scheme, I'd found myself on a flight to Beirut via Paris with an overnight connection, during which I'd been instructed to pick up a diamond necklace from Chopard on the Champs-Élysées. I now suspected she knew that her children would soon be applying to colleges, potentially in New York, and that a week-long cruise on a private yacht would guarantee my attending to them for all 4 years while she remained in Lebanon. Her second reason for inviting me along was my mother and the hope that I would report back to her with news of this latest accomplishment, securing Ahmed. Auntie Lena had spent her entire adolescence overshadowed by her older sister, my mother. We both had. The miniskirt that my grandmother brought back from London to the West Bank, and that my mother was the first girl in 1960s Nablus to wear, was originally intended for Auntie Lena, but it didn't suit her boyish figure. Instead, my grandmother gave it to her oldest daughter, drawing a demarcating line between the sisters and deeming one more worthy of Western products. My mother was already the favorite. As top-ranked in her class at the Friends Quaker School in Palestine, the firstborn child and the owner of 2 highly pronounced cheekbones, she soaked up all the attention like a piece of toast dipped in egg yolk. She was the one destined to a great life. But in the time since their youth, Auntie Lena had surpassed my mother in many ways. She'd gotten a master's degree, established a career, quit and married rich, divorced richer. Somehow, this was never satisfying enough, possibly because my mother hardly registered her younger sister's achievements, or at least acted as though she didn't, and Auntie Lena continued to seek reparations. Any chance to assert adulthood superiority, like dating an extremely wealthy man, had to be maximized, and since few others would tolerate her displays, I was often her desired audience. In this spirit, Auntie Lena had cobbled together an arbitrary assortment of individuals, including me, and invited us on board the yacht to behold the unveiling of her new rich boyfriend. We were expected to transcend our piecemeal formation and national boundaries to forge camaraderie. I love these mini sugar spoons, said Hussein as he twirled one in front of him, his thighs and chest bulging through tight Vilebrequin swim trunks. I don't think I've ever pronounced that word. And a fitted ribbed tank top. Hussein was the Lebanese cardiologist and art historian. Auntie Lena had attended a lecture he'd given at the American University of Beirut about Cézanne's use of color. She stayed after to talk to him. He seemed interesting, so she invited him along. He was hesitant. He needed to be in Rhodes by the middle of the month, until Auntie Lena assured him that the yacht could drop him off. We'll have the captain swing by the island, she promised, and so he agreed to come. Those spoons are perfect for a boat, said Kiko, who had joined us from upstairs. But for an apartment, they'd be très tente. Like many Lebanese who were nostalgic for the Mandate years and who took personal pride in their French colonial history, she spoke only Franco-Arabic. Bonjour alaikum, she'd offer as she hopped back onto the boat, following her afternoon swim. After sauntering down from her bedroom for breakfast, Kiko spent most of the day on the yacht's upper deck, laying flat on her stomach like a slab of nigiri tuna, sleeping. I'm so tired, she refrained. She'd push away a clump of curly red hair that periodically snuck out from underneath her straw hat and onto her face, refusing to pin it back with a beret. Kiko was an interior designer in Beirut and was overwhelmed with clients thanks to the Hariri-funded construction boom at the time. I just want to sleep. Kiko, everyone cried when she descended from her nap above, clapping their hands as though she were a baby taking her first steps across the living room floor. She was given a flute of Moet and a lit cigarette. Once she reached the bottom of the glass, she handed it off to a crew member and climbed back to the upper deck, resuming her spot on the white cushioned bench. Neda was excited to catch up on her reading. Knowing we'd be visiting both Greek and Turkish isles, she'd brought 2 books on board, The Bastard of Istanbul and Lawrence Durrell's The Alexandria Quartet. She had short, straight hair and only 9 fingers. One had been blown off during the UN bombing in downtown Baghdad immediately following the 2003 invasion. She spent 3 weeks laid up in a hospital in the center of the city. Saddam Hussein's daughter was getting a boob job in the room upstairs. No reading on the boat, Auntie Lena announced on day 1 when Neda emerged from her bedroom in capris and a loose striped top and perched herself on the boat's bow with volume 1 of the quartet. No intellectual conversation either, she continued, pistachio nuts spilling out her mouth as she spoke. I'll leave it there.
That was so awesome. A piece of bread dunked in egg yolk is the highest compliment. I love that. Awesome. Okay. So now I another great honor, many honors tonight of introducing my co-organizer, Mina Hamedi, who is a Turkish Iranian writer and literary agent. She holds a BA in nonfiction from NYU's Gallatin School and an MFA in creative nonfiction from Columbia. Mina began her career in publishing at David Black Literary Agency and Writers House. She joined Janklow and Nesbitt in 2018, where she supports co-founder Lynn Nesbitt and represents adult literary fiction and nonfiction. Mina lives in New York with her 2 Turkish street cats, very cute cats, Saffron and Lemon. She's a member of the American Association of Literary Agents, and her writing has appeared in Joyland, The Black Warrior Review, Catapult, and elsewhere. Please welcome Mina.
I'm going to call it pulling a Zaina, and I'm going to switch what I'm reading as well. Thank you again, everyone, for coming out. This is such a wonderful space, both physically and spiritually, Alana. So these are sections from a longer piece called Origin Myths. My grandfather, Awesome, told me our family was born of a feud between 3 brothers. It was one of the few stories passed down to him. He held on to these stories, oral versions of truth mixed with folklore and fables, legends and myths. He said the West could trace family histories over hundreds of years. Our stories were only kept alive by people, by generations. Sometimes when those people leave their homes, they take the stories with them. The Emperor Decius once issued an edict requiring the citizens of the Roman Empire to make sacrifices to the gods. Altars were adorned with flowers, wine, milk, and honey. The heads of the young were anointed in blood. Those who disobeyed the emperor were persecuted. In the city of Ephesus lived 7 men. They refused to worship the many gods or make sacrifices in their names. Instead, they prayed and fasted in their homes. The 7 men were accused of practicing Christianity by roving commissioners who visited cities and villages to supervise the execution of sacrifices and send word back to the emperor. The 7 men fled Ephesus and eventually found refuge in a cave by Mount Coelion. Eventually, Decius' soldiers tracked them down, and Decius ordered them to seal the mouth of the cave with the men in it. The men prayed and wept and spoke of their plight until they fell into a deep, deep sleep. My grandfather says there was a village called Küçükyük, 25 kilometers outside Afyon in western Turkey. Afyon was a wealthy town during the Ottoman Empire, home to opium fields and marble quarries. Küçükyük was once led by 3 brothers, or Agya, the village heads. They were wealthy farmers, hardworking and resourceful. The eldest was named Halil, born in 1802, and the younger brothers were Ali and Hussein. Halil was a natural leader. Ali had opinions. Hussein loved to laugh. In 1830, during the holy month of Ramadan, the brothers gathered in the town hall with village elders to break their fast. They feasted on spicy meats, roasted chicken seasoned with sumac, and rice boiled in butter and salt. Spotting the wishbone left over from the chicken, Halil decided that whoever received the smaller part would have to ask his wife to serve coffee for everyone in the hall. Halil, confident that he would end up snapping the larger piece, reached first. He snapped off the smaller one. His brothers and the other men sitting around the table laughed, saying, "All right, Halil Aga, you better go inform your wife." Unrelenting, Halil raised his head and said, "Absolutely not. My wife will not serve coffee to other men." "But that was the deal," Ali said, standing up slowly. My grandfather says a fight broke out. Halil was a prideful man and couldn't laugh off what was meant to be a harmless bet between brothers. After these events, the 3 brothers abandoned their families and their belongings. They left the village. Ali Aga moved to Elvan Pasha, Hussein to Güney, and Halil settled in a village named Tazlar, surrounded by forests and mountains. 3 centuries after the reign of Emperor Decius, Theodosius II was in power. A local shepherd in need of stone for his shed began to remove the very ones that had kept the cave sealed. As he removed the last stone, the 7 sleepers awoke. Word was sent to the local bishop, and one of the sleepers was brought before them. He testified that they'd been persecuted for being Christians. He led them to the cave where the other 6 men were still waking, fresh-faced and healthy. Theodosius traveled from Constantinople to Ephesus to greet them, weeping beside the cave. I wondered how the 3 brothers could leave everything, leave each other. Did they stand on the hill overlooking their beloved home? Did they shed any tears? Maybe they were looking for a reason to break away, go after new stories. Halil built a new life in Tazlar. He remarried and eventually became one of the village heads. In 1835, he had a son named Hassan, who then had a son in 1862 and named him Hussein, after the uncle he never met. Then, Hussein and his wife Fatma gave birth to 3 children, Halil, Ahmet, and Emine. Ahmet was my great-grandfather. The Cave of the 7 Sleepers is a medieval legend shared within Christian and Muslim circles. In the Quran, it even says a faithful dog belonging to one of the 7 men stood guard beside the mouth of the cave. The Ephesus site is one of many sites attributed to this ancient legend. Other possible locations include Tarsus, Amman, Jordan, Damascus, and so on. A few summers ago, my family and I took a detour on our journey along the Aegean coast to the ruins of Ephesus. As we walked toward the Library of Celsus, I saw a sign in the opposite direction, Yedi Uyuyanlar, or Grotto of the 7 Sleepers. We went through what was once the main street, but we didn't have time to visit the 7 Sleepers. My great-grandfather Ahmet married a quiet girl named Sata from the neighboring village of Uluköy, and she gave birth to 2 sons. During the Ottoman Empire's several wars, Sata lost the 2 boys. When Ahmet returned 8 years later, they had 5 more children. The eldest was my grandfather, Asim. He was born in 1924, but the exact date has been long forgotten. The legend of the Cave of 7 Sleepers was found in 9 medieval languages. But which account should we believe? Was the cave that I passed, that I didn't see, truly the site of a miracle? Is there some trace of truth in the remaining stones, the trees, the soil? Did 3 brothers really fight over a stupid wishbone and tear apart a community to build 3 new ones? I wonder just how much our origin myths determine our present. Here's a myth I could finally inhabit. I could step on the same stones, imagine the roots beneath the soil, know that it was the same sun above me, and feel the heat on my skin. My grandfather never knew his exact birthday. Knowing the year was enough for him. So maybe the myth of the 7 sleepers is enough for me too. The possibility, the story, one I can pass down. Thank you. Again, continuing with the honors, I am so excited to have Mona El-Tahawi here with us tonight. Mona El-Tahawi is an international women's rights activist and author. Her first book, Headscarves and Hymens: Why the Middle East Needs a Sexual Revolution, was published in 2015. And her second book, The 7 Necessary Sins for Women and Girls, was published in 2019. She is editing an anthology on menopause called Bloody Hell and Other Stories. Her third book, The King Herself, will be published via Mariner in 2024. Mona's words have appeared in media all around the world, and she writes a kick-ass newsletter, you guys should subscribe, titled Feminist Giant, which at present has over 40,000 subscribers. Thank you, Mona.
Thank you, Mina, and I'm honored that you're my agent. I love working with you, so thank you. I'm actually reading from a book that I did not write, but to which I contributed, called This Arab is Queer. And this essay is called The Decade of Saying All That I Could Not Say. I am writing this almost exactly 10 years after I died. I'm able to write this because I died 10 years ago. The Mona I used to be died on the 24th of November, 2011, on a street called Mohammed Mahmoud near Tahrir Square, Cairo. Riot police beat her, broke her left arm and right hand, sexually assaulted her, and then dragged her to their supervising officer, who threatened to have her gang raped by more of his men. She was detained incommunicado for 6 hours by the Interior Ministry and another 6 by military intelligence, who blindfolded and interrogated her. When she was finally released, she bequeathed me a new life and the things she could not say. The past 10 years have been a decade of saying all that I could not say. Like nesting dolls, where one doll opens to reveal an identical doll fitting inside it, which then opens up to reveal another identical doll inside it, and so on. Every time I spoke a secret, I found a more intense version of myself, which in turn demanded I say more of what I could not say, and so on, until I got to the core of my silence. I wrote about taking off my hijab, which I wore for 9 years. I wrote about being raised to wait until marriage before I had sex. I wrote some more about the latter, to amend it and say that I was raised to wait until marriage before I had sex with another person, and I obeyed, although I'd been having sex with myself since I was 11 years old, and thank all the goddesses for that, or else I would have lost my fucking mind waiting for that Egyptian Muslim cisgender dick to make a decent woman out of me. I was patient. One broken silence led to another silence nestled within it, which led to another, and so on. I wrote about the 2 abortions I had. I wrote about menopause and how it was affecting my sex drive. My sex drive is back, thank you. I was on a toll. Shame had nothing on me. When you're shameless, you cannot be shamed. What more? What else? What was that smallest doll nesting inside all of these silences I had smashed? Was I brave? Of course I was. I wrote articles that exposed the human rights violations of a regime that tapped my phone, had me followed, summoned me for interrogation at state security several times, threatened to imprison me, and eventually made good on its threats that night on Mohammed Mahmoud Street in November 2011. Was I brave? Of course I was not. I could not say for the longest time that I desired men and women. How could I, when for the longest time, men alone were off limits? How was I to figure out what I desired when desire for anyone was off limits? I first visited Sarajevo in 2016. I went to Vilna Vlas Hotel and Spa, which had been used as the largest rape concentration camp during the Bosnian War, and to Srebrenica, site of the worst massacre in modern European history. The previous night, I had been to a queer club in the Bosnian capital with queer friends. It was a small club that played a mix of Western pop and dance songs, along with domestic folk dance music. The club was packed mostly with men who frequently kissed. I held on to those images, the men kissing all around me as I danced with my friends the next day, as I reeled at the atrocities that had been committed in the place I visited. The queerness I carried out of that radical space of openness and the transgressive sexualities that surrounded me were the perfect antidote to the horror of militarism that had been unleashed in Vilna Vlas and Srebrenica. Men should kiss each other more often and kill less, much less. One of those men in a queer club in Bosnia kissed me. I'm bisexual, he told me. So am I replied. I returned to Sarajevo in September 2019 for Bosnia's first Pride March. It was the second Pride March I took part in that year. 2 months earlier, I had marched in World Pride in New York City as part of a group of queer authors. Whereas the New York City March was massive and festive, Pride in Sarajevo was defiant, moving, and tense. More than 1,000 police officers were needed to secure the event, and anti-sniper units were placed on the roofs of buildings along the main route in the city center. Some conservative Muslim groups had attempted to prevent the event, and others organized counter rallies. Although homosexuality is legal in Bosnia, Islamist radicals and hooligans attacked queer festivals held in Sarajevo in 2008 and 2014, which forced the LGBTQ+ community into hiding. There are next to no gay bars or places where queer people can openly meet. Even that small club where I said I'm bisexual for the first time in 2016 has since closed. This is why marching in Sarajevo Pride was a risk for many of my friends there, as it could potentially out them if family or colleagues who did not know they were queer saw them on television. The opposite was true for me. It was where I could afford to come out. And a few days later, in bed with a Bosnian lesbian, after we'd had sex that I initiated, I wiped away her tears as we talked about the pressure to be normal in homophobic societies. Imagine a Bosnian woman who had survived the Srebrenica genocide being made to feel she is not normal. Surely it's the savagery of the genociders which is not normal. Surely that violence and not our bodies together is not normal. Am I brave? Yes, I am. But courage wilts and withers when it's not challenged, like muscles that need heavier weights. And so I dare myself to say or write the things that scare me the most or avoided saying or writing. I accept the dare for Mona, who died in November 2011. The Mona that I once was died so that the Mona I became could survive. And I want her to know I have smashed the final silence. Thank you.
That was incredible. Thank you, Mona. That was awesome. Our final reader tonight is the one and only Elif Batuman, who has been an idol of mine as a Turkish American writer since I was for so many years. And so it is such, and I know this is the same for so many Turkish American people, truly. So thank you for paving a path for so many of us. Your bio. I'll read some of your bio, you know. Elif's first novel, The Idiot, was a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize and for the Women's Prize. The sequel, Either Or, was published in 2022. She's been a staff writer at The New Yorker since 2010. Elif.
Thank you so much, Mina and the Minas. And it's such an honor and a delight to be reading with this incredible lineup in this incredible space. I'm extremely jet lagged. So I'm kind of like, I'm this sim person in the oblivion. I feel like I'm living in I think I'm in the book that Alma wrote. So we'll see what happens. So I'm going to read a little bit from Either Or, which is sort of autobiographical novel about someone whose name is Selin, who's very similar to me. And she's the book is her sophomore year of college in 1996 to 1997. When I'm trying to think if you were in third grade in 2001, but you know what? I don't even have to, that's above my pay grade. So at the end, most of it is at the college campus in the US. And but then she gets a job writing for a tour guide, a travel guide in Turkey over the summer, which is I did have this job where it was this travel guide series called Let's Go. This was like pre-internet, where they would send college students to do shoestring travel. So you got $40 a day and you had to just go and like drag yourself on this crazy itinerary. And then you fabricated a lot of stuff and put it in a book, and they sold it to people who then followed your instructions. So yeah, so I'm just going to start with the beginning of her summer and read 5 minutes and then call it a night. Okay. And these guys are supposed to be for backpackers. In my heart, I did not see the need for a backpack. Wouldn't I be better off with a suitcase, especially now that suitcases all had wheels? People never even talked about that anymore and acted as if it had always been that way. Yet, all through my childhood, everyone had been yelling, "You'll hurt your back," and wrenching suitcases out of each other's hands in an effort to personally be the one who hurt their back. In the end, I bought the least backpack-like backpack. It was black and convertible, meaning the straps could be hidden, causing it to resemble a giant misshapen duffel bag. If you unzipped another zipper, part of it fell off and turned out to be a detachable day pack. Many people watched with interest as I dragged this item off the conveyor at the Ankara baggage claim. I unzipped the straps, worked them over my shoulders, and, ignoring the open-mouthed stares of a family of 6, trudged to the taxi line. All right. I'm going to skip a little. She goes to her grandmother's house. My grandmother opened the door, skinny and Muppet-like, with her giant grin and her booming voice. "Sit in, my beautiful girl. Welcome, welcome. Mercy, what's that on her back?" The hulking carved wardrobes and cupboards and sideboards, crystal ashtrays, embroidered cloths, stacked basic counters, decks of cards that my aunts knew how to shuffle and manipulate with terrifying expertness and an absent expression. The polite, urgent speech of newscasters coming from the wooden television console, the indescribable smell, soapy yet human. The framed photograph of Atatürk wearing a fur hat. The oil painting of my like everyone has that. The crowd. The oil painting of my grandmother when she was young, with an expression she still had now, skeptical and amused and imperious. Getting old is a great misfortune. My grandmother sat down and smiled into my face, leaning forward and listing everything that was hurting, which included her kidneys and some things I had never heard of. As always, she alluded to a nail that doctors had put in her back. And this is all kind of impressionist. I'm not really sure which part to read. Okay, I'm going to skip the happy memories with mom at the Museum of Anatolian Civilizations. Sleepless night. She's like reading last year's coverage and like, oh, how am I going to make it better? Okay. How long had it been since I had thought of Fatma or Berak, the two women who helped my grandmother at home? Fatma lived outside the city and came once a week. She had a large sculptural face set in an expression of kindness and acted like a relative. I did my laundry in secret, hiding the clothes afterwards so she wouldn't iron them. But she found them and ironed them anyway, even the t-shirts and underwear. Why did I want to cry when I saw those perfectly stacked squares? Berak, who came every day, was skinny with a lopsided grin and looked like a teenager, though she was in her 20s and was married to the doorman. She lived downstairs. My grandmother ordered Berak around without saying please or thank you, like she was always annoyed at her. Why was Berak viewed with skepticism? It might have been because of her political views, which she shared with the doorman, who was a Marxist and also religious, not privately like my grandmother, but in a way that was critical of secularism and of the United States. On the other hand, it could have been less about politics than about her tendency to say unpleasant things. Once, Berak had spoken in my mother's presence of the kind of woman who has gotten to be 50 years old but doesn't own any property. Isn't it kind of funny that she's a Marxist but despises people who don't own property? I asked. It's very funny, my mother said, not laughing at all. On another occasion, Berak had hung wet sheets over the tops of the doors to dry. Remind me why that's not a good thing to do, I said thoughtfully, as though I had simply forgotten. My mother and aunts stared at me with identical sorrowful expressions. A door, it was pointed out to me, was not designed as a load-bearing element. That wasn't part of the great plan for doors. They were not made for people to ride on, but simply to exist on their hinges, regulating access to rooms. When they had done that, they had done enough without also carrying the weight of great dripping wet sheets. And what possible reason could there be? What possible benefit to be derived from rejecting the hallowed product of human ingenuity that was the clothesline? So they wrote a book about Turkey and they sent you to fix the mistakes. I heard in my grandmother's voice the family partisanship that would have, I didn't read that because it's impossible to reproduce that tone. The family partisanship that would have made her swear up and down that of course I could fix any kind of book, as well as mild skepticism about the possible value of this particular book. I spent the first 2 days with my grandmother in the living room, where she passed most of her time, sitting with her knees doubled up in her green armchair, smoking Marlboros, drinking glass after glass of tea, solving the crossword puzzle, getting mad at the neologisms. Modern Turkish had only been around for 60 years, so it was still changing. Arabic and Persian loanwords were periodically replaced with equivalents that were supposed to be more Turkish, but were sometimes just made up. It was annoying to older people. No sooner had my grandmother come up to accept simge, a bogus word for symbol, than she had to put up with the brazen foisting upon the public of imge for image. My grandmother often spoke in proverbs that I didn't understand. I was used to tuning them out. Now it occurred to me that if this had been a foreign country, if it had been Russia, I would have been trying to learn the proverbs. I started writing them down. Some featured my old friend, the fakir, well, that's a callback, whatever. Okay. The fakir chicken lays eggs one at a time. That was about not being in a hurry and seemed somehow directed at me. Another saying, the egg didn't like its shell, was used for people who tried to distance themselves from where they came from or who disrespected their parents. There's just one part where they make fun of my backpack that I'm going to read that and then I'm going to stop. Okay. When Arzu's cousin Chennai saw my backpack, she stared open-mouthed. But surely you can't carry that on your back. That's what I said, my grandmother exclaimed, immediately adding in my defense, but she carries it. My strong girl, mashallah, she carries everything. I put on the backpack so they could see. Truly, she carries it, Aunt Shania murmured. But Céline, can you walk? Tell me that. I took a few steps around the living room. Shania was staring at me with admiration and dismay. Everything on her back, like a yuruk, she said, alluding to an Anatolian nomadic people. Hamal, Hamal, Hamal. She's become a Hamal, said Aunt Arzu when she saw the backpack. Hamal were the street porters you still sometimes saw lugging 300-pound loads up and down hills. Later, in an anthropological museum, I saw some Ottoman saddle packs that the street porters wore under their loads. They really did look like my backpack. Thank you.